Welcome back to the Builder's Block, where we have discussions with people about how they build and create. I'm your host, Modify, and here with me today is a person I've known for a long time as Caleb, but what would you say it is?
I think, my full name is John Caleb Covington, and the rest of the world knows me as Caleb, unless you're a doctor or a lawyer and you call me John. But since we're probably going to be talking about wrestling today, in the wrestling world, I'm known as Rich Kavana, and then I was known as Filthy Rich Kavana, and now I'm known as Richie Rich Kavana as the babyface because I'm a gear maker and have to be a good guy. But you can call me Kavana today.
Awesome. Kavana. Kavana, welcome to the Builder's Block, man.
Thank
How's
you
it going?
It's going great. Thank you for having me.
Cool. Yeah, man. So, yeah, as you introed it there, like, you are a creator of wrestling gear.
Yes.
Or designer, perhaps. Like, I'm a wrestling fan, as you know. Both of us are, obviously, clearly. So how did you get into that?
Well, so me and Modify grew up together. I think kindergarten through senior year, maybe.
Yeah,
or
K through 12, man.
Yeah.
Alcoa.
And Alcoa, go Tornadoes. And I always loved pro wrestling. It was always my escape was pro wrestling. It really helped me get through my parents' divorce, helped me get through a lot of stuff because it was just so ridiculous. You know, it's over the top characters that, you know, you got a clown wrestling a dentist. You got all kinds of weird stuff. And of course, it's sports, it's fake. It's not real. It's a type of entertainment, but there was something that I was always drawn to about that, to the point in school would have, like, we used to backyard wrestle in school. And then after, you know, we graduated, I couldn't play football because I was too small. I couldn't go play college football or anything. And so I actually found a local promoter and got into wrestling myself. And would just travel around the local area in the early 2000s and wrestled. And I wasn't very good, never had a contract, wasn't a big deal at all, just kind of did it for fun. But I had the character that I played, I picked the character of, the name was Rich Kavana, and the idea was the cartoon character Richie Rich comes to life, and he's a bad guy. Like, Richie Rich grows up, and he's a jerk. You know, like kind of the bratty, snotty rich kid that you love to see get beat up. And that was kind of what the character I made as Rich Kavana was, that I would come out and just run my mouth and talk trash and get people to hate me and then lose. Because then when you lose, the crowd would just pop. They want to see the bad guy, you know, the jerk, get beat up. And to get that character across, I had some pretty elaborate outfits made for me because pro wrestling is about pageantry and pomp and circumstance, and it's about flashy stuff. And I always had really nice outfits made. And I had a back injury it really was started in 2009 that put me out of wrestling, and I kind of freaked out. I said, what do I do? Like, I want to stay involved in pro wrestling. And so the guys that made my outfits actually lived in Greenville, Tennessee, which from my house is like an hour and a half away. He said that I will train you how to sew, and I will train you how to make these outfits. And my family thought I was crazy when I pitched them the idea that I'm going to learn to sew. But here, 11 years later, still going strong, and I run a business now called Kavana Customs, and Kavana, of course, is the last name, my last wrestling name. And so I make outfits for pro wrestlers all over the world, from as far as Australia to as close to 2 roads over from my house. So,
And by all over the world, could you give us a couple examples of who these people are? Because I know who these wrestlers are. And I think anyone that's a wrestling fan that's about to hear some of these names come out of your mouth is going to be really impressed with it, man. I totally am. I think it's great.
Well, so I was making gear. Actually, year number 2, I did a show with Jerry the King Lawler, and and got linked up with him and made him a couple of pairs of tights. And actually, Jerry Lawler had a heart attack on a pay-per-view or Raw or something on television.
Yeah, I remember watching that.
And he was actually wearing my tights when he had the heart attack.
Ooh.
But that was in 2012, and after Jerry Lawler as a customer, I kind of had a spell of just doing independent wrestlers all over the country. You know, just kind of whoever would come to me, and I would make them gear or make their outfits, whatever they wanted. And there's a guy named Matt Silva, who he wrestled as Matt Silva in Australia. You know him better as Buddy Murphy.
Yeah.
And when he was in Australia, Matt was looking for a gear maker, and he found me online and ended up making him an outfit, sent it to him, and didn't hear back from him. And a year or two later, he writes me, and he had got signed by WWE and was wanting some more kick pads. And because of him, he started dating Alexa Bliss. And Alexa Bliss, I make all of her kick pads now. And the word kind of started going around the locker room until one day I get a call. I get a call from him saying, Brian Danielson is coming back to wrestle and wants your number. Can I give it to him?
Whoa.
I said, absolutely. And needless to say, that Friday after SmackDown went off the air, he's calling me, and I'm freaking out, thinking I'm about to make because Brian had been out of wrestling for a few years for concussions and health issues, and this was like a big return to wrestling for him, and he's a big star.
Yeah.
And I told my wife Jenna, I said if I can just catch this fish, I'll never let it go. Like I'm going to do whatever I can do to hold on to him, to make sure he's happy, make sure. Whatever. And so since he's been back, he's only wore 3 outfits that I haven't made. Everything else that Brian has wore, I've made.
Wow.
So that's kind of, I think, what I'll be known for, I guess. If I were to die today, people would say, well, he made Brian's gear.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of proud of it. Like it's because he is such a star. Like he is such a mega, mega star.
Yeah. And
I am such a very small. Yeah, I wouldn't even say a company. I'm a one-man show. So to have that opportunity was amazing, or is amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember watching WrestleMania with you and Baldwin and the guys when he was wearing your gear, and we were projecting it on the wall over at Baldwin's. Dude, explain to me what that felt like.
Well, so I think you're talking about WrestleMania 37, and that's when, which is the most recent one, depending on when you're watching this. And it was the main event was Roman Reigns is the champion versus Edge versus Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
And so it was the main event, and he wrote me and said, "Can you make something special for WrestleMania?" And he wrote me that like 2 months before, it was announced that he was going to be in the main event. And I remember I was sitting in my house, and we have these clear glass doors. That are not a screen door, but a clear glass door to see out. And I was sitting on my chair just looking out, and like, what am I going to do? How am I going to make this special? And it was spring, and everything was kind of really bright green and kind of coming in, and I just kind of thought, I was like, I'm going to make trees, like trees, like something new life, new whatever. And so like I literally had some sublimation work done and put trees all over this gear. And I'm making this stuff and thinking like, this is a risk. Like I'm not sure that this is going to turn out at all like what he wants. But lo and behold, it did. And we watched it all over there together at our buddy's house. And I'll tell you this, I haven't told anybody this except my wife and a few friends, or my few family members. But that was the only time in my life I happily cried myself to sleep.
Wow.
Like I whimpered, laughing, crying, whimpering, laughing, because it's like I did something nobody can ever take away.
Yeah.
And to have, creative freedom on the main event of WrestleMania, the biggest match of the of the year, it was a really, really special thing.
Dude, I can't imagine. Yeah, like that story is so awesome. Like to go from a point where, how do I tell my family I'm going to sew,
Yeah.
to your gear is on WrestleMania, which is an event that is a part of a business and entertainment industry that you are extremely passionate about.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what a huge win, what a huge goal to reach, dude. That's awesome. And the way you came up with it's really cool. You were just sitting outside, saw trees, and were like, I'm just going to roll with that.
Well, I'm a big Disney fan and a big Universal theme park fan too. And it's kind of, when you're in that area, it's called a blue sky. When you sit down to create something, for instance, if Disney, the executives come together, we want to make a new ride. Well, let's sit around the table. What's it going to be? That's the blue sky meeting. That's where it could be anything. It could be this. It could be that. We could fly on a pig, or we could snorkel with the shark. It could be anything. And so when I was having that moment, thinking like, it was really exciting, but it's nerve-wracking, because when you don't know what you're going to do, but you got 3 weeks to do it, when it could be anything, you kind of really got to trust yourself. And I heard, I'll share this with you. I heard a poet, and I don't remember his name, but he was talking about the creative process, and he said, everything sucks when you start it. No matter what it is, everything sucks. So don't give up on yourself, and don't quit when you start to doubt, like, well, this might not be good, or is this going to turn out right? Just keep pushing through the creative process, because 9 times out of 10, if you trust yourself, it's going to be all right,
Yeah.
And I really kind of have to lean on that. I just did a pair of tights for a guy named Ricky Morton, who is a famous wrestler. And man, I was not confident in it because he wanted something brand new, different than the look he's wore for 30 years or whatever. But I just had to keep that in my head, like, just keep going. Like, it sucks at first, but just keep going. So,
yeah, man, that's interesting. So do you think that your creative spark, do you think it kind of starts with a thought, an idea, or like a feeling?
It really starts with color in a way. I think the first thing that I see is color, and I kind of go from there because there's a lot of things that go into. Not everybody can wear white the same way, or not everybody can wear certain colors the same way. There's different skin tones, there's different body types. So you really got to, with what I'm doing, I'm kind of looking at the character itself that I'm helping build. Yeah. And like, how can I either make this better or how can I continue? Like Brian, a lot of stuff I make for Brian, every single thing I've made him is different. Everything is different, but it's a lot of the same. It's a lot of flame work. It's a lot of line work. So you have to kind of look at your client, and you don't want to, unless they ask you, you're not trying to reinvent the wheel. You're just trying to, what can I do to make this person a little bit better? Or what can I do to make this look a little bit better? And there's times I failed with that too. I made some outfits for Cedric Alexander. He only wore like once. I've made Brian some outfits he's never wore. So it's not all gold. It's not all great, but
yeah.
Right. That's the end of that thought.
That's the end of that thought. Cool, man. So do you have any like new clients coming up, or maybe outside of the WWE? Or
I'll tell you, I've been at the point where I have the same clients, and if you look at my Instagram, it's kind of a lot of the same because there's only so many hours in the day, and wrestling gear is not the only thing I do for a living. And so I have a lot of the same guys that for instance, I got a client named Matt Sigmund, and Matt Sigmund will get tights every like 3 months. And there's another guy named LSG who wrestled in Ring of Honor. He'll get new trunks, knee pads, and stuff every 2 months. So it's like a constant rotation of my same guys. Mm-hmm. So it's hard, and I'm sure people don't like the fact that I don't return a lot of messages, but like I get so many messages from so many people all the time. And there's just not enough hours in the day. I wish I could help everybody, but
yeah. So, well, do you think this is going to turn into a full-time thing at some point if there's that kind of demand for it?
There's definitely a demand. I would have to train I would have to have help. And there's been a couple of guys that have come along and asked and mentioned about like, hey, can you teach me or can you train me? I would love to, but it's definitely a craft. It's something you have to sit down and take your time at, and there's a lot of different moving parts to it. So it would take a while to like teach somebody. I'm absolutely happy with where I'm at, and I do have, and if the wrestling gear game changes or if I fall out of love with it tomorrow, I do have a backup plan. And so Kavana Customs, once it moves on from wrestling gear, it'll definitely be a different name. I'll rebrand it better. I'll brand myself better, but I'm going to make customized dog and cat outfits.
Nice.
And I'm going to use the same technology, the same materials, the same machines, the same everything that I have, and just make it a smaller scale and make customized pet outfits. At least that's my idea. Mm-hmm. But that could be 20 years down the road. It's just something to look forward to. Whenever I get tired of making kick pads and knee pads and all that stuff.
Yeah. So what all does that entail? Like the actual making of it?
I'll walk you through a pair of kick pads, actually. There's a number of things. I use neoprene, which neoprene is the same material like in a scuba outfit or a deep sea diving outfit. It's that black material. So I'll use that as the base. And so you'd have to cut that out. Then you also have to cut out the actual padding itself. And then you have to cut out the layers of design. So it's like you're putting three things together and then all sewing it down together. I get a kick out of the padding, though. I don't tell a lot of people this. There's no secrets now because of the internet. 20 years ago, the wrestling gear game was a lot more hush-hush, and people didn't share secrets. Everybody knows everything now. Mm-hmm. But every time Brian kicks somebody with his kick pads, I always like to make the joke that padding came from Walmart in Alcoa. So the type of padding, I use a special type of padding it's not special to anybody except campers and kick padders, but I use a pad that's a camper padding. If you go camping, you lay this blue pad underneath your
sleeping bag.
Yeah. So and that pad works so good, and it cuts good. You can sew good. You don't sew through the padding, but you sew around it. It sews around it good. But I was just kind of laughing. He'll kick the crap out of somebody, and I'm like, that pad came from Walmart in Alcoa. But there's a lot of different the knee pads and the kick pads all use the same kind of stuff. As far as trunks and tights, it's all spandex. It's all just heavy duty spandex.
Nice. And do you keep like a stock of all random colors at home?
Man, I should have brought this to you. I was going to bring you a scrap piece of material that was going to be on Brian's 37.
Oh, whoa.
I'll get you one of those. I brought Baldwin one. But I have a weird variety of materials that really aren't big enough to make anything. So for instance, like there's a guy named Sugar Dunkerton who has these really wild outfits, and I would order like 2 yards of this plaid material and only use 1.5 yards. So I've got like this other half of plaid, this weird, ugly plaid material. Like, what am I going to do with it? I've got a lot of stuff like that.
Nice.
Because everything that I make is custom. Everything is almost a one of a kind. I don't make stock stuff. Like, you can't say, hey, do you got any black kick pads laying around that are plain? No, I don't do that. Everything that I make is specifically for the person. So I do have a lot of random, weird materials sitting around, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome that it is, custom made from head to toe, as the Nature Boy would say. You know,
yes,
that's awesome. So, and they're wearing pieces of art, man.
Yeah, and it's
one of a kind pieces of art.
And it's weird too. Like once you make it, you have to it's like you make it, and this is your baby that you've spent days on, but then you send it out. You never see it. I might see it on television, but a lot of the stuff I've made, I've never seen again because it would go to independent people or guys that I don't see the videos of them wrestle or whatever. So it's a weird thing. My wife, the second year of me doing gear, she made a book from, I guess she went to Walgreens or whatever, like a picture book of all the gear that I'd made for that year.
Oh man, that's awesome.
I said, oh hun, you're screwed now. You got to do this every year.
Yeah.
And so like that's kind of the way I've kept up with what I've done is you can go back and look at these books. Because there's stuff I forgot, definitely. But
man, that's awesome. Scrapbooks of all your gear that you made.
She's the
that's
best,
cool,
man. She's the best.
That's...
Like when I opened it was for Christmas. I opened the present, and I'm just like, I'm amazed, and she's happy. I was like, oh, you're screwed. Every year you got to do this now.
Every time.
Yep.
Every time. Cool, man. So, what do you think? Thinking big, right? Mm-hmm. Dreaming big. You hit such a landmark with having gear on Mania.
Yeah.
Could you imagine anything greater than that?
I'll be honest, man. I can't because when I started making wrestling gear, I had a few goals. I've always been goal oriented, and I have a few goals. And my main goal was to actually work for WWE. And since then, I have completely changed that. Do not care. Don't want to work for them. I'm very happy with where I'm at. Mm-hmm. The guy who trained me, his name was Stevie. He wrestled under the name Ryan Phoenix. He told me the goal shouldn't be to work for WWE. The goal should be to have people for WWE come to you. And he was 100% right. But I had that goal. I had the goal that I wanted to have my gear at Wrestlemania, which I've done. And the third goal, which was actually the most important, was to have my gear on wrestling figures. Because as a kid, I was a big collector of wrestling figures, toys, action figures, and I've had that a number of times now.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh
That's
yeah,
really
when we get off,
awesome.
I'll show you some pictures. But there's 4 or 5 or 6 Brian figures, a few of the Alexa Bliss figures, a few Buddy Murphy figures where they're just wearing the kick pads, but that still counts to me. So honestly, man, as far as the future, I'm happy with what I've done. You know, like I don't think that. I always told people too, like I've always viewed this as being in a snail race. Like I've never been like in a big rush to get somewhere. I've been very patient and taking my time, and I'm just happy with where I'm at. I feel very fortunate and blessed. And the guy that trained me and opened up his house to train me to do this for a whole year every day, I can't thank him enough. He doesn't even get how appreciative I am. But man, I'm just happy. I love life. I love my wife. I'm in a good space, and just gonna keep pushing forward.
Ah, that's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. I kind of want to end right there on that. But
All right.
I would like to ask you if you can, or if you feel like comfortable with it,
Mm-hmm.
since you've been in the industry,
Mm-hmm.
I always like hearing stories about wrestlers and situations like that, like of
Okay.
meeting someone, perhaps meeting a wrestler. Do you
Okay.
think there's any story you could maybe share?
There's a few. Man, I've got a good Jake the Snake story about the Applebee's bathroom.
Oh,
I'm not sure. Is this a PG show or?
It is. It is not a PG show.
Okay, because I've held back the F bombs too, but
That's okay,
so
man.
this is a drug related story. Is this?
That's totally fine.
Okay. I don't know who's going to hear this. If any of my family hears this, sorry. You know, I was in my 20s. Jake the Snake Roberts had come to the Green Acres Flea Market to do a show. And the Green Acres Flea Market used to run, it was called the UWA or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they would run every Thursday night. And it was a popular show because Thursdays weren't a big wrestling day. So a lot of the guys would come in and start the wrestling week there, you know, just to kind of get going. And a lot of guys came through there. Ryback, Ricky Morton, AJ Styles, Shannon Moore, Kofi. I think Kofi came through there. But anyways, so they brought Jake the Snake through, and I think he was around the same time as the Honky Tonk Man and Greg the Hammer Valentine came through.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't go to the show, but I'd gotten off work and my other job, and Shane Williams at the time had lived with me, the King Shane Williams. He's another wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
And we all went to Applebee's to eat, and Jake was at Applebee's. And my buddy had some marijuana and was scared to ask Jake if he would smoke with us. And so it's like, I'll ask him, I don't care. And so, but this is, you know, he'd asked, like, he was scared to ask Jake. I was like, I'll do it. Anyways, I'll go to the bathroom to use the bathroom. And Jake comes in the bathroom. And it was only me and Jake Roberts in the Applebee's bathroom.
Oh.
And it was just me and him. It was meant to be. I was like, hey, Jake, you want to go smoke some weed? Oh, no, kid. I fly on a different level. What do you mean? He goes, looking for some crack. Can you give me $200 worth of crack? And I said, and I have no idea where to find crack. I had no idea. I was like, I don't know. He goes, if you could find something, let me know. I'm up here at the bar. I was like, all right. So that was me meeting my childhood hero, Jake the Snake Roberts. He asked me for crack in the bathroom.
Wow.
There was another time I was out. And this is I actually used to smoke cigarettes, and terrible habit. Don't pick it up. And I was at a show in, it wasn't Kingsport. It was somewhere in the Tri-Cities, I think. And there was a famous indie wrestler named Shark Boy. I don't know if you remember Shark Boy.
I don't think I do.
He wrestled in Impact Wrestling and around the Indies. But he also did a great impersonation of Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'll show you that too. But Shark Boy wore this mask. I'd never seen his face. And I was outside of this show. We'd got there early, and I didn't have any cigarettes because I was a 20-something-year-old broke bum. And there's a guy out there smoking. He's like, hey, man, can I have a cigarette? Can I buy one? He's like, yeah, sure. And we sit there and we're smoking our cigarettes and just talking. Had never seen this guy before, didn't know who he was. And an hour later, we're inside, everybody's changing, and he pulls out the Shark Boy gimmick and starts putting on the Shark Boy outfit. I was like, I just bummed a cigarette from Shark Boy and didn't even know who, like a total goof, didn't even know who this dude was, and sitting there talking to him like he's a jackass. I'll tell you one more. So we had Samoa Joe come into town. We were doing, it was a group called Kapow Wrestling, and they were doing a show in Lenore City called World War Lenore. And because I lived near the Alcoa airport, they were flying him in from California. They said, can you pick him up at the airport and take him to his hotel? Sure, this is great. Yeah, I got it. Easy, you know. And so I found out that he smoked weed too. So I had him some of that ready.
Mm-hmm.
Old me, that was the old me. And pick him up, get him in my big truck. We're driving down the road, and he's this California boy, and I'm a country boy from Tennessee. Yeah, Joe, it's my town, it's my neighborhood. Yeah, glad to have you here. And get to Knoxville, and this is before I had like a GPS or on my phone or anything, and I thought that I knew where his hotel was, and I didn't.
Oh.
And it was off Kingston Pike on a certain side road, but I got us lost on Kingston Pike for like 30 minutes after like telling him this is my hometown, blah blah. I got you today. Finally get him to his hotel, and he's like, all right, we got an hour before we leave for the show. He's like, you chill out, I'll come back and get you. So I literally went to a Kroger parking lot and sit in the truck like this. Just like I just got Joe, after he's traveled all day from California, I just got him lost for like, you know, like a goof. And so I go pick him back up, take him to the show. And when it was time to leave, I said, you need to ride back to the hotel? He goes, no, I'm going to ride with these other guys.
Oh, man.
And I was like, thank you, Joe. Thank you. And he gave me a hug. He's like, thank you for everything. But yeah, I was pretty humbled and embarrassed. Like, this is my hometown. I'm going to get you lost in.
Oh, man. Well, those are great stories, man.
Thanks, man.
I'm sure you got a million of them. So anything else, man, do you think we haven't touched on?
I think that's the gist of it.
Yeah, man. I think you've had a great run, man. I'm excited to see where it goes from here. So
thank you so much. Me too.
Caleb Kavana
with Kavana Customs. Kavana Customs on Instagram and Facebook, but Instagram is basically where you can see most of the work. So.
Word, man. And I will include all that in the description and all that for the videos. So Kavana, thanks for coming on to the Builder's Block, man. It's been great.
Flock.